Sir, I need you to give up this seat. Burton opened his eyes. The flight attendant, Rebecca, stood
Sir,
over
I
him,
need you to give up
voice
this
clipped,
seat.
eyes cold. I booked this seat, he said, forcing calm into his tone. It's needed for a priority passenger.
It's
The air
needed for a
tightened.
priority
He felt the weight
passenger.
of curious eyes. A blonde man in a
Come on,
tailored
man.
suit
Don't
stepped
make this
forward,
harder.
offering a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. Come on, man. Don't make this harder. Jordan's fingers dug into the armrest. The anger wasn't about the seat. It was about the assumption that he could be pushed aside, insignificant, disposable. Rebecca's hand went to her radio. Murmurs rippled through the cabin. Phones lifted, lenses waiting. Jordan inhaled slowly, shoulders steadying. His pulse was calm now, almost frighteningly so. When he finally looked up, his expression was unreadable. They had no idea who they'd just tried to move. Jordan had boarded early. He always did. It was a habit formed not from privilege, but from efficiency. Less chaos, less waiting, less friction. He'd checked in online, selected 1A 6 weeks in advance, paid the upgrade fee without hesitation. It was his seat. There was no ambiguity. He wore a gray hoodie with the Atlas Tech logo subtly embroidered on the chest, small enough that you'd miss it unless you knew what to look for. Dark jeans, white sneakers, a black backpack slung over one shoulder. To anyone glancing his way, he looked like a tech worker heading home from a conference. Maybe middle management. Definitely not the kind of person who controlled defense contracts worth billions. That was intentional. Jordan didn't wear power. He embodied it quietly, the way water moves through stone, invisible until the erosion is complete. He'd settled into 1A, placed his backpack beneath the seat, and pulled out his phone. A few emails, a text to his CFO about the quarterly review. Then he'd closed his eyes, letting the hum of the cabin settle over him. He had 4 hours to San Diego, 4 hours to think. That peace lasted exactly 9 minutes. Rebecca had noticed him the moment he sat down. She'd been standing near the galley when her eyes drifted to 1A. Her smile faltered, just for a second. Then she leaned toward another attendant and whispered something. They didn't say anything. Not yet. But the seed was planted. When boarding continued, Rebecca made her rounds through first class with practiced warmth. A businessman in 2C got a bright smile. An older woman in 3A received a compliment. But when she passed 1A, she said nothing. Just a quick glance, a pause. Then she moved on. Jordan felt it. The shift in energy. The unspoken judgment. He'd lived it 1,000 times before. In boardrooms, in country clubs, in luxury hotels, where his presence was questioned simply because his skin didn't match the assumption of wealth. He didn't react. Silence often revealed more than confrontation ever could. Then Chad Graves stepped onto the plane. Tall, blonde, mid-40s, tailored navy suit, Rolex gleaming. He walked with the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no without a good reason. His cologne arrived 3 steps before he did. Rebecca's face transformed. "Mr. Graves!" Her voice lifted an octave. "Welcome aboard. It's so good to see you again." Chad flashed a smile. White, straight, expensive. "Rebecca, always a pleasure. Your seat is right up here in 1A, she said, gesturing toward Jordan. Chad's eyes followed her hand. Confusion flickered, then irritation. Jordan opened his eyes. He looked at Chad, then at Rebecca. "I'm sitting here," Jordan said quietly. His voice was calm, steady. "This is my seat. I booked it." Rebecca's smile tightened. "I understand, sir, but we need to make adjustments to accommodate our VIP passengers." "I am a passenger," Jordan said. "I paid for this seat." "Of course," Rebecca replied, her tone dipping into condescension. "But Mr. Graves is a preferred customer, and we'd like to offer you 12C. We'll refund the difference." Jordan didn't blink. "I don't want 12C, I want 1A, the seat I reserved." Chad sighed, loud enough for others to hear. "Look, man, just take the other seat. We're all trying to get somewhere." Jordan turned his gaze to Chad, held it, said nothing. The silence stretched. Rebecca cleared her throat. "Sir, we really need you to cooperate." "I am cooperating," Jordan said evenly. "I'm sitting in the seat I paid for." Jordan kept his breathing steady. His hands rested on the armrests, fingers loose, not tense, not defensive, just present. He'd learned long ago that the first person to lose their composure was the first person to lose. "I've flown with American Skyline 280 times," Jordan said, his voice low but clear. "I'm a frequent customer. I selected this seat. I paid for this seat. I'd like to keep it." Rebecca's jaw tightened. She glanced at Chad, then back at Jordan. "Sir, I understand your frustration, but we have protocols for seating priority passengers. We're offering you a comparable seat in Economy Plus. You'll receive a full refund for the upgrade cost." 12C isn't comparable to 1A, Jordan said. "And I'm not asking for a refund. I'm asking to sit in the seat I reserved." Chad shifted his weight, his carry-on still in hand. "Buddy, you're holding up the whole boarding process. Just be reasonable, okay?" Jordan didn't look at him. His eyes stayed on Rebecca. "I'm being perfectly reasonable. I haven't violated any policy. I haven't caused a disturbance. I'm simply sitting in my assigned seat." Rebecca's smile had vanished entirely now. She straightened, her voice taking on a sharper edge. "Sir, if you refuse to comply, I'll need to call the lead flight attendant." "Then call them," Jordan said calmly. Rebecca's eyes flickered with something, surprise maybe, or irritation that he wasn't backing down. She turned on her heel and walked toward the galley, her movements quick and deliberate. Passengers in the rows behind had started to notice. Heads turned. Whispers began. Jordan reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He opened the voice recorder app, tapped record, and placed it face down on his lap. Then he pulled up his messages and typed quickly. To Diane Morris, Executive Assistant Situation Developing on AA Flight 447. Prep American Skyline Contract Files. May need legal on standby. He hit send, locked the screen, placed the phone in his hoodie pocket. Chad was still standing in the aisle, his irritation becoming more visible. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, loud enough for the people around them to hear. "We're going to miss our departure window because this guy wants to make a scene." Jordan finally looked at him. His gaze was steady, unreadable. "I'm not making a scene. I'm sitting quietly in my seat. You're being difficult. I'm exercising my rights as a paying customer." A man in a business suit came striding up the aisle, tall, broad-shouldered, white. His name tag read, Steve, lead flight attendant. He had the kind of presence that was meant to intimidate. Squared jaw, arms crossed, voice booming even before he spoke. "What's the problem here?" Steve said, looking directly at Jordan. Rebecca stepped forward, her voice suddenly professional, clipped. "This passenger is refusing to cooperate with a seating reassignment." Steve turned his full attention to Jordan. "Sir, is there a problem?" "No problem," Jordan said. "I'm sitting in the seat I booked. We've offered you an alternative seat with a full refund." "I don't want an alternative seat. I want the seat I paid for." Steve's eyes narrowed. "Sir, we have the right to reassign seating to accommodate operational needs and priority customers. If you refuse to comply, we have the authority to deny you boarding." Jordan's expression didn't change. "On what grounds?" "Failure to follow crew instructions." "I've followed every instruction that's lawful and reasonable," Jordan said. "Asking me to give up a seat I legally reserved and paid for, without cause, is neither." Steve's jaw clenched. He glanced at Chad, then back at Jordan. The calculation was visible on his face. "Mr. Graves is a valued customer. We're trying to provide him with the best possible service." "And I'm not?" Jordan asked quietly. The question hung in the air. Steve didn't answer. Instead, he leaned down slightly, his voice dropping. "Sir, I'm asking you one more time. Will you cooperate?" Jordan met his eyes. "I am cooperating. I'm following the terms of my ticket." Passengers were watching now. Some had their phones out. A woman in row 3, a black woman in her 50s, dressed in business attire, leaned forward slightly, her eyes locked on the exchange. Steve straightened. He pulled a radio from his belt. "We may need airport security at gate 22. Jordan said nothing. He simply sat, hands on the armrests, breathing steady, waiting. Steve didn't wait long. 2 airport security officers appeared within minutes, their uniforms dark and official, radios crackling on their hips. They walked down the aisle with the kind of deliberate slowness that made everyone stop and stare. The cabin went quiet. Even the overhead air vents seemed to hush. "This the passenger?" one of them asked, nodding toward Jordan. Yes, Steve said. He's refusing to comply with crew instructions. The officer, a middle-aged white man with a thick mustache, looked down at Jordan. Sir, I'm going to need you to come with us. Jordan didn't move. On what basis? Failure to follow lawful orders from the flight crew. I haven't violated any regulation, Jordan said calmly. I'm sitting in my assigned seat. I have my boarding pass. My ticket is valid. What specific rule am I breaking? The officer hesitated. Just for a second. Then Steve interjected, his voice louder now, performative. Sir, how did you purchase this ticket? Jordan blinked. I'm sorry? How did you pay for first class? Steve gestured toward the seat as if it were evidence of something. We need to verify your payment method. The implication was clear. The assumption hung in the air like smoke. Around them, passengers shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away. Others stared harder. Jordan reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and handed Steve his credit card. Black metal, sleek. His name embossed in silver, Jordan A. Burton. Steve took it, turned it over in his hands like he was inspecting a counterfeit bill. He held it up to the light, checked the back. His expression was skeptical, suspicious. This is your card? Yes? You're sure? Jordan's voice remained even. I'm sure. Chad, still standing in the aisle with his carry-on, let out a short laugh. Maybe he borrowed it from someone. A few passengers chuckled, nervous, uncomfortable, but they chuckled. Jordan turned his head slowly toward Chad. His eyes were cold, unblinking. Chad's smile faded. Steve handed the card back, but didn't apologize. Instead, he pulled out his phone and made a call. He turned slightly away, but his voice was still audible. Yeah, I need to run a verification on a first-class passenger. Possible fraud. Jordan said nothing. He simply looked up at the overhead camera mounted near the galley. Then he looked back at Steve. The woman in row 3 stood up. Her voice cut through the tension like a blade. Excuse me, why does he have to verify anything? He showed you his boarding pass. He showed you his card. What more do you need? Steve turned to her, his expression hardening. Ma'am, this doesn't concern you. Please sit down. It does concern me, she said, her voice steady but rising. You're treating him like a criminal for sitting in a seat he paid for. I've been flying for 30 years, and I've never seen anyone else ask to prove their ticket was legitimate. Ma'am, is it because he's black? The question landed like a thunderclap. The cabin went silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Steve's face flushed. That has nothing to do with... Then why is he the only one being questioned? She pressed. Why is he the only one who has to prove he belongs here? Steve's jaw worked. He looked at the security officers. One of them shifted uncomfortably. The other avoided eye contact. Rebecca stepped forward, her voice tight. We're simply following protocol. Protocol for what? The woman asked. For black passengers in first class? Rebecca's face went pale. That's not... Then explain it to me, the woman said. Explain why this man, who has done nothing but sit in his seat, is being treated like a threat. No one answered. Jordan leaned forward slightly, his voice quiet but firm. These protocols seem to target a very specific kind of passenger. But I wonder, do they know who they're actually dealing with? Steve's radio crackled. A voice came through, tinny and distant. He turned away, pressing the device to his ear. His expression shifted. Confusion, then something close to alarm. He glanced back at Jordan, then quickly looked away. Rebecca's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and her face went white. Her hand started to shake. Chad was scrolling through his own phone now, distracted, impatient. He muttered under his breath, Can we just get this over with? I have a meeting in San Diego. Jordan's phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out. A single message from Diane. Contract files ready. Legal team on standby. Board meeting confirmed for 7 a.m. tomorrow. They're waiting for your signal. Jordan locked the screen, slipped the phone back into his pocket. His expression didn't change. He simply sat there, hands folded, waiting. Steve turned back to him. His voice was quieter now, uncertain. Sir, we're going to need a few more minutes to... To what? Jordan asked. To verify that I'm allowed to exist in this space? Steve didn't answer. The woman in row 3 sat back down, but her eyes stayed on Jordan. A few other passengers, 2 more black passengers, 1 older Latino man, were nodding, filming, witnessing. Jordan looked up at the camera again. Then he looked directly at Steve. His voice was calm, clinical, final. You should know, everything that's happening right now is being recorded. By me, by them, by your own security systems. And when this is over, people are going to ask why this happened. They're going to want to know what justified this treatment. He paused. I suggest you think very carefully about your answer. Chad's patience had run out. He dropped his carry-on into the aisle with a thud and stepped closer to Jordan's seat. His hand shot out, fingers reaching for the strap of Jordan's backpack beneath the seat in front of him. Enough of this, Chad said. I have an important meeting in San Diego. You're being childish. Jordan stood up in one smooth motion. He wasn't tall, 5'10" maybe, but the way he moved made the space around him feel smaller, tighter. His voice was cold, precise. Don't touch me. Don't touch my belongings. He looked directly into Chad's eyes. What you just attempted could constitute assault. There are witnesses. There are cameras. I suggest you step back. Chad froze. His hand hung in the air for a moment before he pulled it back. His face flushed red, not from embarrassment, but from anger. He pointed a finger at Jordan's face, close enough that Jordan could feel the air move. You think you're special? You think you're better than everyone else on this plane? Jordan didn't flinch. I think I deserve the same respect as everyone else on this plane. You're holding up 200 people because you want to prove a point. I'm sitting in my seat. You're the one demanding I move. Chad's jaw clenched. He looked at Steve, then at the security officers. Are you going to let him talk to me like this? Steve stepped between them, hands raised. Gentlemen, we need to de-escalate. There's nothing to de-escalate, Jordan said. I'm sitting. He's standing. He's the one who tried to grab my property. One of the security officers cleared his throat. Sir, he said to Chad, I'm going to need you to step back. Chad's face twisted. Are you serious? He's the problem here. Sir, step back. Chad took a step back, but his eyes stayed locked on Jordan. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. A big one. Jordan didn't respond. He simply sat back down, his movements deliberate, controlled. He adjusted his seatbelt, folded his hands in his lap, and waited. The passengers were no longer passive observers. Some had begun to choose sides. The woman in row 3 was openly recording now, her phone aimed at the front of the cabin. A younger white man in row 2 leaned forward, addressing Steve. Why is this taking so long? We're already delayed. Just remove him and let's go. Another voice from further back. He's not doing anything wrong. Why should he have to move? Because he's making a scene. He's sitting quietly. They're the ones making a scene. The cabin split. Some passengers muttered about delays, about schedules, about how one person was ruining the flight for everyone. Others whispered about discrimination, about unfairness, about what they were witnessing. Phones came out. Cameras pointed. The air grew thick with tension. Chad seized the moment. He turned to address the cabin, his voice loud, commanding. Who here wants to get to San Diego on time? A few hands went up. A few voices murmured agreement. Then let's stop coddling this guy and get him off the plane so we can all move on with our lives. The woman in row 3 stood again. No one's coddling anyone. He bought a ticket. He has a right to his seat. He's being unreasonable. He's being black, she shot back. That's what you mean, isn't it? The younger man bristled. That's not fair. This has nothing to do with... It has everything to do with it, she said. And if you can't see that, then you're part of the problem. Steve raised his voice. Everyone, please, let's stay calm. But calm was no longer an option. The cabin had fractured. Arguments broke out in whispers, then in open conversation. Someone in the back shouted, "Just let the man sit." Someone else responded, "Just let us leave." Steve's face was red now. He pulled his radio again. "We need a supervisor at gate 22, immediately." Rebecca stood near the galley, her phone out. She was live streaming to a private crew group chat. Her hands shook slightly as she typed a message beneath the video. Dealing with a difficult passenger, refusing to cooperate, causing delay, backup needed. The comments started rolling in. Supportive, angry, frustrated. She didn't notice Jordan watching her from his seat, his expression unreadable. Steve made an announcement over the cabin PA system. His voice crackled through the speakers, loud enough to silence the arguments. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing a passenger compliance issue. If Mr. Burton does not vacate seat 1A within the next 5 minutes, this flight will be canceled and all passengers will need to rebook. Any delays or inconveniences will be the responsibility of the non-compliant passenger." The cabin erupted. "Are you kidding me? This is insane! Just throw him off already! Don't you dare throw him off!" Jordan sat perfectly still. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. A notification from Twitter. Someone had uploaded a video of the confrontation. The caption read, "Black man being forced out of first class for white passenger. As American Skyline this you?" The video already had 12,000 views, 300 retweets. The hashtag was forming, American Skyline Racism. Jordan opened his messages. Typed quickly. To Marcus Chen, CFO Atlas Tech. Activate Plan B. Withdraw all American Skyline contracts. Notify Board of Emergency Session tomorrow, 7 a.m. Do not wait for my confirmation. Execute now. He hit send. Then he opened his call log and dialed his attorney. The phone rang twice before a voice answered. "Jordan? I need you to witness something," Jordan said quietly. "I'm sending you a live audio feed. Record everything." "Done. What's happening?" "I'm being removed from a flight. Unlawfully. I need documentation." "You'll have it." Jordan ended the call, locked his phone, placed it in his lap, screen side down. 2 uniformed police officers entered the aircraft. Not security, police. Their presence shifted the energy immediately. Conversations stopped. Cameras angled toward them. The lead officer, a black woman in her 40s, scanned the cabin until her eyes landed on Jordan. She approached slowly. Her partner, a younger white man, stayed a few steps behind. "Sir," she said, her voice professional but not unkind. "I'm Officer Daniels. We've been called because there's a dispute over seating. Can you tell me what's happening?" Jordan looked up at her. His voice was calm, measured. "I'm sitting in the seat I reserved and paid for. The crew asked me to give it up for another passenger. I declined. Since then, I've been accused of being non-compliant, had my payment method questioned, and been threatened with removal." Officer Daniels glanced at Steve. "Is that accurate?" Steve shifted. "We offered him an alternative seat with a full refund. He refused." "Did he violate any regulation?" Steve hesitated. "He refused to follow crew instructions." "What instructions, specifically? To move to a different seat? And why did you ask him to move?" Steve's jaw worked. "Operational needs." Officer Daniels looked at Jordan, then at Chad, who was still standing in the aisle, arms crossed, then back at Steve. "Sir," she said to Jordan, "if you voluntarily deplane now, there won't be any charges. But if you refuse a lawful order, I'll have no choice but to arrest you for trespassing." Jordan's phone buzzed. He glanced down. A call. The screen read, "Michael Torres, CEO, American Skyline." He didn't answer. Instead, he looked up at Officer Daniels. "I'm not refusing a lawful order," he said quietly. "I'm refusing an unlawful one." Her eyes narrowed. "Sir," Jordan's phone buzzed again. A text this time. From Diane. "Contract withdrawal confirmed. 2.1B pulled. Press release drafting now. Stock markets will know by opening bell." Jordan stood up. Slowly. His hands were visible, open, non-threatening. He looked at Officer Daniels, then at Steve, then at the camera mounted above the galley. "I'm not getting off this plane," he said, "but I am making a phone call." He lifted his phone, swiped, pressed a number, held it to his ear. It rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, loud, panicked. "Jordan, please, don't do this." It was Michael Torres, CEO of American Skyline, and he was on speaker. The cabin froze. Every eye turned toward Jordan's phone. The voice coming through the speaker was unmistakable, strained, desperate, loud enough for everyone in first class to hear. "Jordan, please, I just found out what's happening. Steve, Rebecca, stop what you're doing right now." Steve's face drained of color. Rebecca's hand went to her mouth. Michael Torres continued, his voice cracking. The man you are trying to remove is Jordan Burton, CEO of Atlas Tech Systems, our largest private contractor. And as of 10 minutes ago, he has terminated every agreement we have with his company. Rebecca's phone slipped from her hand and clattered onto the galley counter. Chad's smirk vanished. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Michael's voice dropped. Quieter now, but no less urgent. That contract was worth $2.1 billion, 18% of our annual revenue, and it's gone, because your crew decided to humiliate him over a seat. Steve's lips moved. No sound. Then barely a whisper. Sir, I didn't know. You didn't need to know, Michael snapped. You needed to treat him like a human being. That's the job. And you failed. Jordan stood perfectly still, phone in hand, his expression calm. He let the silence stretch. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but clear. I didn't make this call to humiliate anyone. I made it because I want everyone here to understand something. He looked around the cabin, at the passengers, at Steve, at Chad. What happened here today isn't about me. It's about every person who's been dismissed or degraded because someone made an assumption based on how they look. He turned to the woman in row 3. She was still holding her phone, tears streaming down her face. Thank you for speaking up. That took courage. She nodded, unable to speak. Jordan addressed the cabin. Some of you were ready to see me removed. Some of you defended me. I don't hold that against anyone. But I want you to remember this moment. This is what happens when we stop seeing people and start seeing stereotypes. He looked at Officer Daniels. I'm not pressing charges. You were doing your job. But I am asking you to think about how quickly this escalated and why. Officer Daniels nodded slowly. Jordan turned to Steve. Then Rebecca. You saw a black man in first class and assumed he didn't belong. You didn't check his record. You didn't verify his status. You just decided, based on nothing but bias, that he wasn't worthy of the seat he paid for. Steve opened his mouth, closed it. Mr. Burton, I apologize. I didn't mean... It doesn't matter what you meant, Jordan said. It matters what you did. Rebecca stepped forward, her voice shaking. Please, I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Jordan held up a hand. Your apology doesn't fix the problem. It doesn't undo what happened, and it doesn't change the fact that this isn't an isolated incident. He looked at Chad. Chad's face had gone gray. His hands trembled. You, Jordan said quietly. 6 months ago, your company approached Atlas Tech for a partnership. We declined. Do you remember why? He didn't wait for an answer. We declined because your leadership didn't reflect the values we prioritize. Diversity, accountability, respect. You just demonstrated exactly why we made that decision. Chad staggered back. His carry-on tipped over. He didn't pick it up. A young black woman in row 4 stood up, tears on her face. Thank you. Thank you for not backing down. Jordan's expression softened. You don't have to thank me. You deserve to take up space too. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The cabin erupted in applause. Not everyone, but enough. The woman in row 3 clapped until her hands went red. An older Latino man stood. A white woman in row 6 joined in, crying. Steve dropped to his knees in the aisle. Mr. Burton, please, I have a family. I can't lose this job. Please. Rebecca covered her face, sobbing. I just got promoted. I thought I was doing the right thing. Jordan looked down at them. His voice was quiet. Final. The right thing was to treat me with dignity. That was the standard, and you couldn't meet it. He picked up his backpack, walked toward the exit, his steps measured, unhurried. As he passed Chad, he stopped, looked at him, said nothing. Chad couldn't hold his gaze. Jordan stepped off the plane. Behind him, chaos. Passengers talking, filming, crying. Steve still on his knees. Rebecca sobbing. Chad frozen. And on Twitter, American skyline racism was trending nationwide. 72 hours later, American Skyline held a press conference. The room was packed. Journalists, cameras, microphones crowding the small podium at the airline's headquarters in Dallas. Michael Torres stood at the center, his face drawn, his suit wrinkled. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. Effective immediately, Michael said, his voice hoarse. American Skyline has terminated the employment of Steve Carlson, Rebecca Hammond, and 4 other crew members involved in the incident aboard Flight 447. Their actions do not reflect the values of this company, and we take full responsibility for the harm caused. The room erupted with questions. Cameras flashed. Michael raised a hand. Additionally, our Chief Operating Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, and Chief of Customer Experience have submitted their resignations. The board has accepted them. We are conducting a full internal review of our training protocols and customer service policies. He paused, looked directly into the cameras. We failed Jordan Burton. We failed our passengers. And we failed the communities we serve. We are committed to doing better. But the damage was done. Within 48 hours of the press conference, American Skyline's stock had plummeted 34%, according to data from Bloomberg. Investors were panicking. Partners were reconsidering. The Department of Transportation had opened a formal investigation into systemic racial discrimination within the airline's operations. Atlas Tech's $2.1 billion contract had been officially transferred to Skybridge Airlines, a smaller carrier founded and operated by a Black entrepreneur. The announcement made headlines. Skybridge's CEO, in her own press conference, thanked Jordan for his trust and pledged that her company would set a new standard for dignity and respect in air travel. Chad Graves didn't fare any better. His employer, a mid-sized marketing firm that had been courting Atlas Tech for months, released a terse statement within 24 hours of the video going viral. Effective immediately, Chad Graves is no longer employed by our organization. His behavior does not align with our company values. We apologize to Mr. Burton and to everyone affected by this incident. Chad's LinkedIn profile went dark. His Twitter account was deleted. He vanished from public view entirely. But the consequences didn't stop at firings and resignations. The Department of Justice launched a civil rights inquiry. American Skyline faced class action lawsuits from passengers who had experienced similar treatment. Advocacy groups called for boycotts. Celebrities joined in. The hashtag #AmericanSkylineRacism became a rallying cry, shared millions of times across platforms. Jordan didn't comment publicly. He didn't give interviews. He didn't gloat. 2 weeks after the incident, he posted a single tweet. Justice isn't revenge. It's accountability. It's making sure this doesn't happen to someone else. The tweet was retweeted over 500,000 times, liked by nearly 2 million, quoted by civil rights leaders, by politicians, by educators. Jordan Burton had become a symbol, not because he wanted to be, but because he refused to be invisible. 2 weeks after the incident, Jordan stood on a stage in San Diego. The venue was a hotel ballroom, filled with 300 leaders from the National Association of Black Executives. The crowd was diverse: CEOs, entrepreneurs, nonprofit directors, educators, people who had climbed mountains to get where they were, people who understood the weight of being underestimated. Jordan wore a simple navy suit, no tie, no flashy accessories, just him. The applause when he took the stage was thunderous. It lasted nearly a minute. He stood quietly, hands folded, waiting for it to fade. When it finally did, he spoke. "I didn't act because I was personally offended," Jordan said, his voice steady. "I acted because I have the privilege of power, and with that privilege comes responsibility. There are millions of people who experience what I experienced every single day, in airports, in stores, in hospitals, in boardrooms, and most of them don't have the resources I have. They don't have a platform, they don't have leverage." He paused, looked out over the crowd. "That's why I couldn't stay silent, not because I needed vindication, but because silence is complicity." The room was utterly still. "I want to be clear about something," Jordan continued. "What happened on that plane wasn't an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a much larger disease: bias, assumption, systemic disrespect, and it won't be cured by firing a few people. It won't be solved by a press release or a hashtag." He leaned forward slightly. "It will be solved when we commit, individually and collectively, to seeing each other as fully human, to rejecting the shortcuts our brains want to take, to choosing dignity over convenience, every single time." The applause started again, but Jordan raised a hand gently. "One more thing. Atlas Tech is launching a $50 million fund to support minority-owned businesses in the travel and logistics industries. We're not doing this for publicity. We're doing it because representation matters, ownership matters, and if we want to change the system, we have to build alternatives. The room erupted. People stood. Some were crying. Jordan waited for the noise to settle. Then he said quietly, almost to himself, "Dignity doesn't need to be proven, but responsibility, that's something we carry every day." He stepped away from the podium. The applause followed him all the way off the stage. If you witness injustice, no matter how small, no matter how uncomfortable, don't look away. Pull out your phone. Record it. Share it. Speak up. Not because you'll always win, not because it's easy, but because silence costs more than courage ever will. The world changes when ordinary people refuse to accept disrespect as normal. When a woman in row 3 stands up and says, "This isn't right." When a young college student finds the strength to say, "Thank you for not backing down." When a community decides that enough is enough. You don't need a billion-dollar contract to make a difference. You don't need power. You just need to refuse to be complicit. And here's the thing they don't tell you. The person you underestimate today might be the person who controls your future tomorrow. The quiet man in the hoodie might be the CEO who signs your checks. The woman you dismiss might be the judge who hears your case. The young person you ignore might be the leader who reshapes your industry. So before you make assumptions, before you let bias guide your actions, ask yourself, do I really know who I'm dealing with? Because respect costs nothing. But disrespect? It costs everything. Stand up, speak out, record the truth. Support those who have less power than you. Build systems that reflect the world you want to live in, not the world you inherited. And remember, dignity isn't negotiable. Not for you, not for anyone. Respect costs nothing, but disrespect, it costs everything.